I would try to say I hope not. That it was certainly an important role and a prominent role. Whether it made a difference in our election, my honest answer is I don't know, and I hope not.
Arguably, after Putin perhaps, no one outside had more influence on what happened there.
Yeah, that's the thing I hope is not true. Certainly no one had a more difficult role than the FBI, but I don't know the answer to the ultimate question.
You stress how important it was for you at the FBI to remain above politics. Do you accept you didn't achieve that?
Sure. I believe that we were stuck in the middle of an amazing 500-year flood of politics and political venom, really, in the United States. And I think we stayed away from making decisions for political reasons, but waves of partisan anger washed over us.
And is the FBI now seen as a political organization because of that?
It's definitely not a political organization to its core. The FBI has not been politicized. It's being politically attacked, which is a very, very different thing. But it's the same as it was when I was there. It's the same as it was 10 years ago. It really is a group of people who don't want any part of politics.
Let's go back to July 2015. You opened that first criminal investigation into Hillary Clinton, her personal email account, as she was running for president. Do you accept that when you made that public, you crossed the line, your role changed, and you unwittingly then made your position political?
I don't. In fact, I politely reject that. Because
you didn't have to go public. You could have opened the investigation. Others before you, Mueller perhaps, would not have gone public.
No, I don't think so. That's not the controversial decision, because we began the case in response to a public referral from the watchdog, the Inspector General of the United States intelligence community. And even then, we didn't publicly confirm the investigation until 3 months later. But it was a fairly uncontroversial thing to confirm an investigation everybody already knew about that was that prominent and important. The harder decision was how to talk about it at the end of the investigation.
Uncontroversial, and yet the Attorney General at the time, Loretta Lynch, asked you not to call it an investigation. Why do you think she did that? Did she not believe that you should be going public?
No, she did. In fact, she had made the decision. I teed up for her, brought to her the decision, so should we confirm that we have this investigation? The whole world's already talking about it. Should we say that we have it? And she agreed, she made the decision, but then directed me to call it a matter.
Why?
I don't know. It concerned me, and the reason it concerned me was the Clinton campaign at that point was working very hard not to use the term investigation, so it worried me. But I decided not to fight about it because I also thought journalists would miss the distinction, which they did. So I obeyed the instruction, and everybody wrote that we had confirmed the investigation.
And then 12 days before the election itself, you'd already closed it. You reopened that investigation after your team found hundreds of thousands of emails on the laptop of the disgraced Congressman Anthony Weiner. And again, you went public. Now, why didn't you wait? Wasn't there a rational position that said, do you know, I need more time to look at this. This is a critical moment in US history. I just need more time to work out what this is about.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And look, reasonable people might take that path. My view of it was that would be dangerous and potentially catastrophic to the justice institutions in the United States. We had told the Congress and the American people months earlier, we're done here, you can rely on this, there's nothing there. And now that's not true in a huge way, and the result may change. So what do? Do you speak or do you not speak? Well, to my mind, speaking would be really bad. Not speaking would be concealing, would be covering up something that was no longer true, and that would be disastrous. Now, someone might have done what you suggest, which is, well, let's take a peek. Let's work on this for a few days and see if we can figure it out. The problem with that was the team was saying, there's no way we can finish this before the election. There are hundreds of thousands, which was true, and we have to read them individually. And so what would be gained by that delay? And then you might have a leak of the fact that you'd gotten a search warrant.
Except you did choose to not speak. In the other investigation, you knew there was a concurrent FBI investigation at the time into alleged links between Trump and Russia, Trump's campaign team and Russia, and you didn't share that with the public. Now, people are looking at this and saying, weren't you guilty of double standards here? You were playing God.
Yeah, definitely not playing God, trying to be an effective FBI director, and I understand totally why people are confused by that. And it requires something of an explanation to actually explain why it illustrates our consistent approach to investigations. Because unlike the Clinton investigation, which was already public, We were in the very early stages of counterintelligence investigations of a very small group of Americans, not Donald Trump, to try to figure out, is there a connection between these people and the Russian effort? There actually wasn't any serious consideration given in the Justice Department as a whole or the FBI to disclosing that, because it was so early. We had no idea what we had, and what is it we would say exactly? We've just begun a counterintelligence investigation. There may not be anything here we don't know. We would never say that in any circumstance. The harder question, though, was what should we say to the American people about the broader Russian effort to influence the election? That was an important question, and I believed we should say something to the American people.
And it was Barack Obama who stopped you from doing that?
President Obama actually delayed his decision about whether to do it, and finally in October decided the government ought to put out some kind of statement. And my view was it's too late for the FBI to do that and be consistent with our rule that if we have an option, we avoid any action before an election that might have an impact.
The trouble is, though, that you describe it as a worry that Clinton would look illegitimate or her legitimacy would be questioned when she won. You assumed from the polls that she was going to win. Why didn't you have on the noise-cancelling headphones that said, no punditry, no polls, no press, I am the director of the FBI, and that is how I make decisions?
Yep. And actually try to live with those noise-canceling headphones on. But here's the problem. I did not consider the polls in making this decision, but you must consider the public trust in the institutions of justice. Despite what our mothers may have taught us about not caring what people say about us, when you lead an institution that's involved with the public administration of justice, you have to care that people have faith and confidence. And so my judgment was, if I speak 11 days before the election, that'll be really bad. If I conceal what we're doing, it will destroy public confidence in this institution for a generation. And so that's the sense in which I cared about public opinion.
Do you still care? Clinton believes that second opening cost her the election. Have you spoken to either her or to Bill Clinton since that was lost?
No, neither of them. I've read the part of her book where she writes about it, where she's obviously deeply pained by it for reasons that I understand.
Would you apologize to them, to her, for the part you played?
No, I wouldn't, except I'd urge them to do this. And I'm not trying to sell them a book, but read the 2 chapters that cover this in the book. You won't walk away necessarily agreeing with my decisions, but you will realize that we were not trying to hurt or help either candidate. We're trying to do our best in a nightmare. I would have been happy if Anthony Weiner had never ever purchased a laptop in his entire life, but we were stuck. And so what we did was not done to help Trump or hurt Clinton or the reverse. And I think if she and others would read that part of it, I think they'd see that.
Let's fast forward to January 2017. Trump has won. You're on your way to Trump Tower to tell the president-elect about a secret dossier, the Steele dossier, allegations of misconduct, conspiracy between Trump's campaign team and the Russian government. Did he seem worried by that?
He seemed focused on it in one respect, which is to try to confirm that it had no impact on the actual vote.
And did that strike you as odd?
Yes. Well, I mean, that's a legitimate question for a candidate to ask. What struck me was what wasn't asked, which was, so what's next and how do we protect the American democracy from this Russian threat? I don't remember any questions about that.
One part of the dossier contains salacious allegations that he ordered prostitutes in a Moscow hotel room to urinate on each other as he watched in a bed that the Obamas had once slept in. You held back from telling him that line. Why?
Because it's hard enough to talk to the president-elect and use the word prostitutes and Moscow hotel room in the same sentence. And my goal was to do as little as I needed to do to put him on notice that this was out there. It wasn't something the FBI was interested in, except we wanted the candidate, now the president-elect, to know that this was out there. In the event there was something to it, it disarms any effort to coerce an official, but also just because the U.S. intelligence community had this information and we knew it was going to become public and wanted him to know.
So it wasn't embarrassment on your part?
Well, just discomfort. The whole thing created an out-of-body experience for me, but just discomfort. What am I doing as the FBI director talking about something like this with the future president? And so I thought, I will do my best to discharge my duty to put him on notice, but I don't really want to talk about the rest of that.
He thinks the whole dossier is rubbish. Do you believe any part of the Steele dossier?
Well, a central premise of the Steele dossier was consistent with lots of other information the U.S. intelligence community gathered. That is that the Russians were engaged in a sustained and comprehensive effort to interfere in the 2016 election. And so in its core, it was corroborated by other U.S. intelligence. Now the rest of it, we didn't know at the time, and there was an effort underway by the time I got fired to try and figure out, so which of this can be validated and which of this can be ruled out.
On several occasions, President Trump met with you alone. We heard about the chicken pasta dinner. He demanded your loyalty. Why didn't you just tell him that was not your job?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think I kind of did by, first of all, staring and not giving a response, and then in the rest of the conversation, interjecting, trying to explain why it's important for there to be distance between the FBI and the Justice Department.
He didn't see that though. He kept on saying to you, I need your loyalty. Where's your loyalty? Have I got your loyalty? Why didn't you just say, you don't, Mr. President, understand my job?
Well, I think from what I said, I think he fairly understood how I thought about my job by both my reactions when he asked for loyalty and what I said during the meal. But look, I think in hindsight, I think that's fair. I might have done it differently, but I don't want to be too tough on myself because I think a fair-minded president would understand the FBI director just told you in substance, this is not something you should be doing.
Did you feel intimidated by him?
Not intimidated by him personally. I have tremendous respect for the American presidency, and the White House obviously is a central physical place in the life of my country, and so the environment is intimidating. Intimidating is probably the wrong word. It just brings a sense of respect, almost reverence into play. But I don't think that was a heavy layover for our conversation.
You claim that Trump told you to drop the investigation into Mike Flynn, his security advisor, over the Russian connections, something that Trump has denied. Do you believe he was trying to stop justice? Was he trying to obstruct it?
I think the request that we drop the investigation is potentially obstruction of justice, but I actually don't know the answer to the final question, because under American law, obstruction of justice requires a specific kind of intention, and I don't know what the other evidence is that would reflect on the president's state of mind.
Would you be investigating that if you weren't who you are now?
Sure. Yes, and I expect the special prosecutor is investigating it.
Alarm bells presumably are ringing for you at this stage. He's demanding loyalty, he wants you on your own, he reminds you, you say, of a mafia boss. Why didn't you think, I can't do my job? Did you think of walking?
No, I actually thought the opposite, that I can't possibly leave the FBI now, that I need to stay and try and protect its independence.
And then in May of last year, he did fire you without telling you. It was a moment Steve Bannon has called Trump's worst mistake in history. You kept memos of the meetings, and Special Counsel Robert Mueller was brought in to investigate. Do you think if he hadn't fired you, that Mueller investigation would not be going on?
I don't know. It's possible there would still be a special prosecutor, because one of the issues that the Justice Department had told Congress they would sort out is how to supervise the investigation. So it's possible there would still be a special prosecutor, but it's hard to answer it in the hypothetical.
Do you expect Robert Mueller will be allowed to finish his job?
I do. Mostly I hope that he is. I do expect, because I think even if the president were inclined to fire him, he would realize both that would be a disastrous attack on the rule of law, and it wouldn't make a practical difference. You'd have to literally fire everyone in the Justice Department and the FBI to stop an investigation. And so I believe that even if Mueller were fired, that would be a terrible thing. The next will pick it up, the next will pick it up, the next will pick it up.
Do you expect him to fire Mueller and his deputy Rosenstein?
I don't know for sure, and so it would just be a guess. The best answer I can give you is I sure hope not.
There's a lot of speculation that they might go. What do you think would happen if they were fired by Trump?
I think it would create appropriately a tremendous amount of concern and worry about the rule of law in the United States. And as I said, I also think in practice it might not have any impact in derailing the investigation.
You would be surprised if Mueller came away with nothing from this?
Well, he already has produced significant criminal charges and convictions as a result of his work. Well, I'm sorry?
On Trump himself.
I don't know what the answer is. I really don't know what he will conclude with respect to the president, and I actually don't care. I care that he finds the truth and that he's allowed to find the truth, whatever that is. And if he is not interfered with, he'll find the truth. And people should accept it. People shouldn't be rooting for him to find one result or another. They should want him to find whatever is true.
You talk of President Trump staining those around him. What did you mean by that?
I think the way in which he acts, and especially his corrosive effect on norms, truth-telling being the most important of them, has that staining effect on institutions and people who are close to him. He has a habit of, and even people who support him would agree with this, I think, of telling lies, sometimes big, sometimes casual, and then insisting that the people around him repeat them and believe them. And that stains any human.
Does he listen to those around him? Are you convinced there are now enough sensible, reasonable people around him to stop impulsive behaviour?
I am not.
So you don't sleep easy at night thinking someone will contain him, there won't be an impulsive gesture or an action?
Well, I wake up some mornings and read the president is demanding the jailing of private citizens, occasionally me. And so that's one of the reasons I'm confident the answer is there are not adequate people around him to stop impulsive behavior. And we've actually become numb to it in the United States. Our president calling for the imprisonment of private citizens. That is not okay. That is not normal in the United States of America or in the UK. It's not acceptable. And so that is an attack on some of the norms that are at the core of this country. And we can't allow ourselves to become numb to that.
Where do you think this is leading? One person said to me, whatever Mueller's investigation finds, it will just be interpreted however people want. Watergate today wouldn't be seen as Watergate.
I don't know. I don't know where it's headed. I hope most of all, Director Mueller, special prosecutors allowed to find out what the truth is. And then if he finds significant misconduct, we have procedures under our Constitution to address those. But I don't know whether that's where it's going to end up.
And where do you think it's leading if Trump won't listen to those around him and if those people are not going to contain him?
There'll be a continuing series of attacks on the values that are at the core of this country. And one of the things I hope to accomplish in writing this book is to stimulate people, no matter what their political views are, to realize there's something above that that is at the heart of this country, that set of values, especially the truth, and to focus on it and to do our absolute best to cabin the president and hold him accountable for violating those norms.
He will stain everyone around him, you said. Eventually it makes you unable to accomplish your goal of protecting the country. Has he not stained you? You're writing about his fake tan and his hands, you're angry on Twitter, you're slagging off the president in a book tour. Do you feel stained?
I don't, and I hope not, and I'm never angry on Twitter. I try not to be. I try to be occasionally funny and artistic and ambiguous, but and this business about I'm attacking him in the book in his appearance, I'm not. I hope people will read the book and see that I'm actually trying to be an author and describe in a detailed way my boss when I was a kid working at a grocery store, John Ashcroft, the former Attorney General, and the President. It isn't about picking on him, it's about describing a scene. So I don't think so. Again, it's hard to judge because I'm trapped in me, but I don't think it's stained me.
You described the President as being uninterested and distracted in a briefing on terror. What advice would you give to foreign leaders like our own Theresa May when dealing with Trump?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I have a great deal of admiration for Theresa May, who I know, and so I don't know that I could offer any useful advice. I think what the transparency that today's media offers puts all foreign leaders in a position to understand the nature and quality of the president's decision-making and how he acts, so I don't think I can improve on that.
But in terms of now, the relationship between the president and the security services, is there material now that they wouldn't dare share with him because they think that's too dangerous?
I don't know. I actually don't know how they've thought about it, because the president, by press accounts, has revealed sensitive information casually at times. I don't know whether they're thinking about it differently. By the time I left in May of last year...
Would you be thinking about it differently? If you were still a director of the FBI, would you be saying there is stuff I do not want to share with the US president right now because he will leak it and that is too dangerous for our national security?
Potentially. You'd have to be very careful about that because you have an obligation under our Constitution and the structure of our government to make sure the president has the information the president needs. And so you'd have to, it's hard to answer that in the abstract, but you'd have to think about it in a way you probably wouldn't have with other presidents.
This is, if you like, the first draft of history and people will interpret it the way they want. A former colleague of yours at the FBI has said you have damaged the FBI irrevocably. It's become one more institution now that the public don't trust. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's nonsense, but I do worry that the political attacks on the organization could have the effect, if we're not careful, of undermining public trust in an institution that all parts of the political spectrum need to be competent and honest and independent, which it is. But if people don't think that, it affects its ability to do its work. And so I actually think that the decisions, the choices that we faced, always between bad and worse, we always chose the least bad option and for the right reasons.
And you kept notes of the memos during your meetings with Trump. You've been asked to hand those over now. What is your worry about making those public?
Well, that's not a decision for me to make. I don't have the memos anymore, and so the government has to decide, the executive branch.
Would you like to see them made public?
I don't want to see anything done that would make it harder for the special counsel to complete his work. And so that's why it's entirely a judgment for him to make.
If you step back, you say, look at Trump, his poll ratings are up, his taxes are down, he's planning on a second term, he's got credible Western allies supporting his foreign policies, he's pulled off this extraordinary coup of a meeting with North Korea. Plenty of people are saying things aren't going so badly.
Look, I want the president to succeed. I want every US president to succeed. If he's able to achieve a resolution in North Korea, that is a great thing for the country and the world. That'd be wonderful. I continue to have the concern I have about his effect on our core values. And so despite, I hope there's lots of successes in the rest of the Trump administration, that doesn't mean we shouldn't focus on the threat that his conduct poses to what matters most in this country, which is our values.
Do you dislike him?
Dislike him? No, not as a person. I actually feel sorry for him as a person. I dislike his actions, especially the attack on things like the rule of law and the truth.
James Comey, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.